Welcome everyone. Today's story is about more than wealth, more than charity. It is about the quiet moments where compassion chooses to speak. It begins on a stormy night, high above the city, in the glass-walled penthouse of a man who seemed to have everything, until he saw something that made him stop. There, curled at the edge of his bed, was his maid, shivering, exhausted, and unaware he was watching. What happened next would ripple far beyond that room. It would challenge the comfort of the privileged, silence the sting of gossip, and prove that kindness, when done openly, is its own form of courage. This is a story of giving without expecting, of lifting another without asking for applause, and of one man's decision to act, even when the world misunderstood his reasons. Before we unravel today's story, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. You're watching the Ife Creative Pen, your sweet storyteller. The rain had been pouring all night, tapping against the giant glass windows of Richard Langston's penthouse. It was past midnight when he returned from a late business meeting, tired but restless. As he stepped into his bedroom, he froze. There, curled up on the edge of his massive king-sized bed, was Maria, his maid. Her small frame was shivering, her uniform still damp from the day's chores. She looked exhausted, clutching a torn blanket that barely covered her knees. Richard's first instinct was confusion. Why was she here? He had given her a small room in the servants' quarters. But as he looked closer, he noticed her cracked hands, the faint bruise on her wrist, and the dark circles under her eyes. She must have been too tired to even make it back downstairs. For a long moment, he just stood there, watching her breathe slowly, unaware of his presence. Something in him, something buried beneath years of boardroom battles and cold transactions, shifted. Without waking her, he quietly walked to his closet and pulled out a thick cashmere blanket. He placed it gently over her, making sure her shoulders were covered. Then he sat at the edge of the bed, his thoughts swirling with questions he'd never asked before. When morning came, Maria woke with a start, realizing where she was. She jumped to her feet, stammering apologies, her eyes wide with fear. She expected anger, maybe even dismissal. Instead, Richard motioned for her to sit. "You slept here because you had nowhere else comfortable, didn't you?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded, tears filling her eyes. Her small room had a broken window that let in rain, and the mattress was so worn it felt like sleeping on wood. She had tried to fix it herself, but she barely earned enough to send food money to her siblings in the village. Richard listened silently, then stood up. "Get dressed," he said. "We're going out." An hour later they were in a furniture store. He bought her a brand new bed, warm bedding, a heater for her room, and clothes she had never dreamed of owning. On the way back, he handed her an envelope, 3 months' salary in advance. "Fix your window, send money to your family, and make sure you never have to sleep in discomfort again," he said. The following morning, Richard gathered all the household staff. "I live in a home with 15 rooms, yet the people who keep it running sleep in conditions I would not tolerate for myself. That ends today," he declared. He announced that every staff member's quarters would be renovated with proper beds, heaters, and bathrooms. Until the work was complete, they would stay in the unused guest suites. Then he turned to Maria. "You're no longer the maid here. I'm making you household manager. You'll oversee these changes." A week later, Richard called her into his study and handed her a thick envelope. Inside were land ownership papers. "That's your family's new home," he explained. "I bought the land and had a small house built in your village, fully furnished. Your siblings won't have to struggle anymore." Maria's lips trembled. "Why would you do all this for me?" Richard leaned back, his voice low. "Years ago, my mother worked as a maid. She died before I could give her the life she deserved. When I saw you sleeping in my room that night, I saw her in you." Maria's life transformed. In her village, her siblings ran barefoot into the new house, marveling at the tin roof and real beds. Neighbors gathered to see the miracle. Back in the city, Richard enrolled her in evening business classes, encouraging her leadership skills. She began to carry herself with quiet confidence, her dreams growing larger. But soon, whispers started among the city's elite. Social media posts accused Maria of manipulating Richard, claiming there was more to their relationship than met the eye. Strangers stared, gossip spread, and even her siblings heard cruel remarks at school. One morning, a tabloid reporter cornered her and bluntly asked if she had seduced her boss. That evening, she told Richard she wanted to resign to protect his reputation. He refused. "If I let lies dictate my actions, I'm no better than the people spreading them." "You're staying," he said. The next day, Richard called a press conference. Maria stood behind him as he spoke to a room full of reporters. "Yes, I gave Maria a new position. Yes, I helped her family. And no, there was nothing romantic, nothing manipulative, nothing hidden. When I was young, my mother was a maid. She died without knowing comfort. I could not change her fate, but I could change Maria's. Kindness should not be suspicious. Generosity should not be shameful. If helping someone rise makes me guilty, then I stand guilty before you all." The room fell silent before one reporter asked, "Why risk your reputation?" Richard's answer was simple: "Because the world needs more people who act from compassion, even when it costs them." The next day, headlines changed. Maria returned to work with her head high, and in her village, people spoke only of her resilience and good fortune. Moral lesson: true kindness does not seek applause, nor does it shrink in the face of judgment. In a world quick to doubt, the greatest courage is to help others openly, even when it invites criticism.